Hello everyone, this is Dr. Atkins. Hope you're having a great week so far. I wanted to go ahead and go over the week 3 assignment where you are actually going to be developing your own lesson plan. If you remember from your week 2 assignment, you had 3 different lesson plans that you had to examine when you were doing your analysis piece. It was the Hunter lesson, the Common Core standard lesson plan template, and the Understanding by Design. So if you go back to the week 2 assignment, you'll find those links, but I will also be providing the exemplars that you can also use as well when you've decided which lesson plan you're going to use. So real quick again, when you go back to week 2 assignment, that is where you'll find the 3 different templates of the 3 different lesson plans, and you're going to pick one of these that you're going to use to create your instructional lesson plan for week 3. So go back to week 3, and so in this instructional plan, whatever lesson plan you do choose to use, you have to make sure that all these bullet points are also included in your lesson plan. Then part 2 includes a synopsis piece, which will follow your actual lesson plan, and we'll talk about that in more detail as I go over the templates. And then you have to be sure that you cite at least 3 scholarly sources. This can come from the library, this could be your textbook or additional readings, as well as the Common Core State Standards and the ISTE standards, which again I will go over that in more detail as well. So what I wanted to do is, in this video, I'm going to go over all 3 of the lesson plans. So you may fast forward through this video if the first lesson plan is not the one that you're going to use, and just find where I go over it, and then you can follow along. Like I said, I will go ahead as well and attach these exemplars for you so you have them handy and you can look over them yourself. So the first one that I will go over is the Madeline Hunter lesson plan. And what you need to do, before actually I go over this, what you need to do is select a Common Core State Standard. And the reason why those lesson plans say math or English language arts is because those are the only 2 subject areas that the Common Core covers. Science and social studies are not included in the Common Core. So you're going to go to the website and go to read the standards, and you're going to select either an English language arts or a mathematics standard. And I suggest that you pick a grade level that you're comfortable with. If you're not very comfortable with mathematics, I would deter you from picking high school level mathematics, because I'm not even comfortable with that as I was an elementary school teacher. So go ahead and pick a grade that you would be interested in teaching and that you have experience and knowledge of the content so that you can really develop a solid lesson plan. So I'm just going to pick mathematics, and I taught 4th grade, and you're going to pick which strand that you want to use. You might choose geometry, and here are the standards right here. There's 3 under geometry, and what you'll do is all you're going to do is highlight, copy and paste, and place it into your lesson plan, and then you can just cite it. There's no need to paraphrase or direct quote your standards, because that's something that you're going to have to do if you become a classroom teacher, and for those of you that already are, you know the process. So you're going to pick a math or English language arts standard, and you're going to copy and paste it into your lesson plan, and this will be the guide for you as you're developing your lesson plan. Now, I chose a science one for the purpose of this is exemplar. So you'll see here where it says English or math, but again, that's what you all are doing. I chose a science standard, and you're going to copy and paste your standard here, and then you're also going to copy and paste the ISTE standards that are reflected in your lesson. And so if you go back to the week 3 and you click on this, it will take you to those standards and you select the ones that are aligned with your lesson plan. So as you will see, I've started off with the Madeline Hunter lesson plan. So if you are not using that, you can go ahead and skip forward. But you're going to copy and paste your content standard, your ISTE standard. You're going to go ahead and write your lesson objective. The verbiage up top you can absolutely keep, that's within the lesson plan, and then just include your part. If you'd like, you can make your writing bold so that it's clearly visible or distinguishable between what was already included in the lesson plan. So you're going to write your learning objectives that support your lesson plan. Then you'll write the anticipatory set. Again, this is where we're motivating students to understand the lesson. Motivating students or getting them excited about the lesson. Here I used a KWL chart, and I did the first two sections to kind of get them excited, and it also was a way for me to formatively assess what the students might know. So here, within week 3 assignment or the lesson plan, you need to make sure you label all the DOK levels, depth of knowledge levels within the lesson plan, as well as the gradual release of responsibility. Now this particular lesson does have the gradual release of responsibility already embedded into it, so you're covered there. But you'll see here, I chose the DOK level 2 here, and be sure to go back to the announcements as well as your week 3 discussion, where I've provided some videos about the DOK levels to kind of help you. Then here is the I do part of the gradual release. Here's the direct instruction. I put what level I think it is, how I'm modeling, I'm checking for understanding, and you guys can go ahead and read through what I've included so that you can see the level of depth that I'm looking for. And then here I have included 3 different ways to assess for learning for the week. That's for week 3 assignment, you only have to include 2 different ways. And then when you do your week 4 assignment, you're going to have to add a 3rd way. Then here, this is part of the Madeline Hunter questioning strategies, topical or overarching questions that I might ask. Again, all the DOK levels are labeled. The guided practice, which is the we do it part of the gradual release model. Again, that is the OK one for my lesson plan. And then the independent practice, which is the do it on your own. Again, I've labeled the DOK level that I think is appropriate, as well as the closure. And then the differentiated instruction. Be sure that you're telling me how you're supporting students in meeting their learning needs. And you may not know specifically what those learning needs are, but you can include things that may make the content more comprehensible for the students. So maybe things like visuals and opportunities for students to feel a plant and those kinds of things. Then you're going to have the synopsis, where you're going to elaborate on areas that are difficult to show on the instructional plan. So even though you labeled all the DOK levels in the lesson plan, what you're going to do here is essentially tell me why you've chosen those levels in a more in-depth explanation. And this is where you're going to have your citations. You can go look for resources to help you in supporting why you think the things you've labeled are those DOK levels. And then the next thing is you're going to describe the stages at which you will assess students and explain how you will use this data to adjust your instruction and provide students with feedback. So tell me when you're going to be assess them, and how is that information or that data that you're going to collect from assessing them, how are you going to use that to adjust your instruction and provide students with feedback. And then last, tell me how you're integrating technology into your lesson plan and the purpose it will serve in helping students meet the learning objective. So again, this is where I would have a citation to back up your reasoning why the particular technology you've chosen to integrate into your lesson plan will best support students in meeting the learning objective. And then the reference should happen on the next clean page, but here is a link to the Writing Center to help you with APA formatting. There's a great checklist here so that you can include that. So this is the Hunter lesson plan exemplar. And again, I will go ahead and attach that for you so that you can look through it and see the level of detail. The next one is the Common Core. If you've chosen the Common Core one, again, you're going to pick a math or English language arts. I've used the same lesson that I created for the Hunter plan as in this one. So again, you're just going to copy and paste your standard and the ISTE standards. The learning targets, which is just another way to say learning objectives. This is where you will include that. Now, in the Common Core, they have the student-friendly translation. And basically what that means is, how are you going to translate these components so that students better understand what you want them to do? And they usually come in the form of I can statements. So these are your learning objectives for the lesson plan, but then for your students, you might write them as, I can name the parts of a plant and describe what each part does for the plant. This just language helps students to make better sense of what they should be able to do at the end of the lesson. Then you're going to provide the relevance or rationale. Basically, why is it important that students learn this information? Why is it important for the real world? So again, I've included what I would do for this particular lesson, and then again, you're going to put it in student-friendly terms so that they can understand it. Then the formative assessment. This is where you're going to explain to me how you're going to formatively assess students to know that they're working towards the learning objectives. Again, week 3, you only have to have 2 formative assessments, but for the week 4 assignment, you have to have 3. So I've just included 3 here. And then again, have the student-friendly terms, and again, this can be in the form of an I can statement, so you can see how the two are related. And then the thing with the Common Core lesson is that the gradual release of responsibility model is not clearly outlined in this lesson plan, so you're going to have to do that. And so you can see that I've included each of the parts, which is the direct instruction, the guided instruction, and the independent practice. So you'll see from the Madeline Hunter lesson plan, it's essentially the same thing, the same lesson plan, but I've just, adapted it for this particular Common Core lesson plan template. But again, it's clearly labeled. I can see all the different levels of the gradual release of responsibility model. I've also labeled any DOK levels that I think are appropriate within this lesson plan. So you're going to go ahead and do that, and then list your resource and materials that you're going to use for the lesson plan. And then your access for all is, how is this lesson plan? How are you going to ensure that all students So then your access for all is how you will ensure that all students have access to and are able to engage appropriately in this lesson. So you can consider all aspects of student diversity. So, how are you going to make sure that the content is comprehensible for students? So like I said in the Hunter lesson plan, you might think of visual aids, you might think of certain kind of pairings that you might do to better support students, and other things you might do is incorporate multicultural literature in your lesson plan. It just depends on what your lesson plan actually is. And then for the Common Core lesson plan, it actually has you detail specific modifications and our accommodations for students with disabilities. So I just chose student with ADHD and an ELL student, and I listed specifically how I would support students for this particular lesson plan. And this will be helpful to you because in week 4 you're going to do something similar to this as well. And then you're going to do your synopsis, which again is the very first thing you're going to do is elaborate on areas that are difficult to show on the instructional plan, such as how you applied Webb's depth of knowledge to activities or assessments. So remember you went back, remember that you've labeled the DOK levels throughout your lesson plan. So this is where you're going to tell me, you know, why you chose to label it as such, and explain why, you know, you think it's that level. And this is where you're going to want to provide citations, find resources based on Webb's DOK levels that will support your rationale as to why you felt it was a certain DOK level with regards to activities and or assignments. And then the next part would be you're going to describe the stages at which you will assess students and explain how you will use the data to adjust your instruction and provide students with feedback. So tell me when and where you're assessing the students, and then how you're going to use that to adjust your instruction, and then again provide feedback to students. And then lastly, discuss the technology you chose to integrate and the purpose it will serve in helping students meet the learning objective. So again, this is another great place to provide citations or literary evidence to support why you think that piece of technology would support students in meeting the learning objective. You can kind of talk overall about how technology might help to enhance that. And then you'll go ahead and list your references. I provided a link here to the Writing Center, which is a great checklist that will provide you guidance in ensuring that you're properly formatting your reference list as well as citations. So that's the Common Core one. And then the last one is the Understanding by Design lesson plan. And again, you'll copy and paste whatever your math or English language arts standard is from the Common Core, your ISTE standards, and then your established goals or learning objectives. You'll go ahead and include that here. And then the Understanding by Design is this whole idea of designing lessons backwards. So I'm actually going to start with my assessments first before I begin writing the actual lesson plan. So here you're going to describe what you think the big ideas are going to include or involve, what the essential questions are. These are great questions. They're typically open-ended, and there's no incorrect answer, but it just really gets students to think about the content in a more critical manner. The knowledge, what you want students to know, and skills, which students should be able to do. So this kind of it details or expands on your learning objectives just a bit more. And then, so like I said, the backwards design starts with the assessment before we actually go into the learning plan. So this is how you are going to formatively assess students. You're going to describe that here. And again, like I said in all the last 2 lesson plans, for your week 3 assignment, you only need to include 2 different ways, but I've done 3 here, which is something that you're going to have to do for your week 4 assignment. And then you have your learning plan, which is the stage 3. And you'll notice there's some similarities between this lesson plan and the Madeline Hunter. But both the Madeline Hunter and this one actually have the gradual release of responsibility model embedded into the lesson plan. So unlike the Common Core lesson plan template, it's already there for you, so you don't have to put it in there. So you'll include your anticipatory set, your instructional input, your guided practice and independent practice, and you'll notice again that I've included the DOK levels for this particular assignment as well, or this lesson plan. It also requests that you label the formative assessments, so wherever you're formatively assessing students, make sure you include that. as well as where you're integrating technology. And so I've included that here. And then there's the differentiation piece where, again, you're telling me how you are tailoring your instruction to best meet the needs of your students. Again, you don't know the learning needs of your students, but you can always include strategies that will make the content more comprehensible. So, like I've said, for the other 2 lessons, you may include visuals, may have some opportunities where students work together, in terms of placing higher students with average students to get them to collaborate together and provide proper scaffolding. And you might include things that are culturally diverse. So depending on your lesson, you might include something like a multicultural literature book to help those students who are culturally diverse to quote unquote see themselves in the lesson plan. And then again, you're going to do your synopsis. As I stated in the other 2 lesson plans, you are going to elaborate on areas that are difficult to show on the instructional plan, such as the web's depth of knowledge. So tell me, what areas you identified for web's DOK levels, which activities and assessments, and you're going to be sure to explain to me why you've chosen that level. Why did you think, something was a DOK level 1? And this is where you're going to want to provide citations. Find something, the literature or resource about web's DOK levels so that you can back up your opinions with this literary evidence. And then you're going to describe the stages at which you will assess students and explain how you will use this data to adjust your instruction and provide students with feedback. So tell me when and where you're assessing students and how you're going to use it to support your instruction. And then the last thing is discuss the technology you chose to integrate and the purpose it will serve in helping students meet the learning objective. So again, this is another great place to include literary evidence to support why you think technology as a whole will support students in meeting the learning objective, and then in more detail, why is your specific technology that you're going to use support the students. And then finally, make sure you reference all your sources. Here's a link to the Writing Center that will help you with APA formatting. And hopefully these 3 exemplars will help you better understand what I'm looking for and the level of detail. I will go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and post this in the announcement. I haven't done it just yet, but we'll post it in the announcement, and you'll be able to access all of that information there. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and happy lesson planning.